The story kicks off with a heavy thought. You only get one shot at life, even if it's filled with regrets. That's why our MC is determined to make his next life better. This time, he wants to live without any regrets. He finds himself standing in front of two kids, a boy and a girl. The boy is desperately begging for help, while the MC just stands there, staring. He feels super nervous, and the crowd around him starts whispering all sorts of things, even calling him a monster for letting kids beg like that. He believes that he might be a transmigrator, as fragments of his past life surface from time to time. This world seems a lot like a popular game called Bright Fantasy, though he doesn't know much about it. He only bought the game because he saw a friend playing it, but he never actually opened it. All he knows is that it's a command-based RPG set in a bright world of swords, magic, and multiple heroines. The protagonist is named Isuka, but Gray isn't the hero. Instead, he's reincarnated as a side character with an incredibly villainous face, often mistaken for a bandit or worse. With no clue about his role in the game, he just shrugs and rolls with it. Adventurer life, here we go. An adventurer is supposed to be this honorable profession. They gather at the guild every day to take on quests, and they have ranks that go from E up to A, with sub-levels in between. It's a bit of a hassle, but Gray's managed to climb his way up to rank B, which is no small feat. To reach B rank, you need 3 consecutive C rank quest completions. Gray's already nailed that. With solid sword skills and a broad magic arsenal, attack, healing, buffs, debuffs, you name it, he's confident he can handle himself and at the very least not die too easily. But right now, he's more focused on the 2 kids in front of him. The crowd is getting louder, with people speculating that the kids might be sold or even calling for the guards. Gray's getting more and more nervous, feeling like everyone's judging him just because of his intimidating appearance. The girl tells him they're begging because they need help. They have a sick family member who needs healing and asks Gray to use his magic. Earlier, the boy asked a man if he'd like to buy a flower. The man responds by kicking the boy and calling the flowers dirty. That's when Gray steps in and kicks the guy in the face, making him fall to the ground, and agrees to buy a flower. He used his recovery magic on the kids. Gray asks the kids if they have any family, but they shake their heads. They are on their own, and one of them is sick. He quickly realizes his recovery magic only heals wounds, while true healing magic is exclusive to church priests. Still, he reassures them it's no big deal. The kids stare at him in disbelief, but he just shrugs, agreeing to see their friend, even though he's not sure he can help. He wonders if his healing potions will even work. The boy mentions they can't pay him, but Gray brushes it off, telling them they can pay him back whenever they can. The kids are so overwhelmed with gratitude that they almost burst into tears, and Gray doesn't fully get why they're so emotional. The boy explains that it's because someone's finally being kind to them, and the girl adds that they're just kids trying to survive. Gray tells them to calm down, already making up his mind that he has to help them no matter what. They start walking toward the house, and the boy realizes they haven't introduced themselves yet. Gray casually mentions his name and jokes about how it's not obvious he's an adventurer. The boy introduces himself as Isuka, and the girl is Fio. Gray nods, but his mind is already racing. The name Isuka sticks out. It's the name of the protagonist in this world. Gray starts thinking that being reborn as a villain and getting involved with the main characters might lead to trouble. Normally, he'd avoid them, but since he doesn't know the story, he decides to follow his conscience. Even if it leads to his death, he'd rather live without regrets. After reaching a broken down and shattered house on the outskirts of the slums, Isuka goes inside to let everyone know about the situation. Faya remains outside and starts thanking Gray profusely. He tells her to thank him after he is done with the treatment. Gray warns her not to trust everyone so readily, since he could also be a bad person. She says she believes in him, which makes him a little happy. She mistakenly interprets his grin as a frown, but he assures her, musing that's just his default expression. Isuka comes back and thanks Gray for waiting. He gestures for Gray to come in now. Inside, he sees 3 more kids and a woman. Isuka gestures toward the sick girl, and Fio asks if he can heal her. Gray says he'll try. He is greeted by a slightly older girl, Ariamel, who is taking care of 2 younger kids, Lutz and Nina. The sick one is Stella Chan. Just one look is enough for Gray to understand the problem. Stella is a vampire since she has red eyes and pale white skin with sharp fangs. She is probably a half-vampire according to his diagnosis, which is an even greater issue as they are discriminated by both humans and pure-blooded vampires. He tells them that she isn't sick, just malnourished. The air in the room feels heavy. Gray figures that when vampires lack nutrients, they crave blood. But oddly, she hasn't attacked any of the other kids. He concludes she's unaware of her own bloodlust. Easy fix, she just needs the right nutrients. He stands up, asking what they usually eat. Ishuka mentions they sometimes eat church food, bread, but only when they can sell flowers. Gray apologizes and tells him to forget about it. He starts thinking that church food is only once a week and probably the best meal these kids get. He reassures them it's fine and tells them he'll provide food for a month. The kids can't believe it. Ishuka asks if he's sure, while Theo says they can't accept all this. Gray cuts in, asking if they want help or not. He explains his magic won't cure Stella, but there's another solution for malnutrition, just eating regularly and having a balanced diet. They're incredibly grateful, and Gray decides to head to the market. As Gray walks, he reflects on how abandoning the kids would definitely leave him with regrets. With a mischievous grin, he thinks they're unlucky as they trusted him. They'll end up as sacrifices for his own satisfaction. He also notices something about their health that doesn't sit right, so he decides to add fruits and bread to their diet for the day. Suddenly, a group appears. A bald man in black approaches Gray, asking if he's also keeping an eye on the kids in the cabin. Gray's temper flares. He grabs the man's wrist and slams his head into the ground. The already wary lads are now outright terrified of him. He growls that he doesn't know what they were planning, but it's not happening on his watch. Moments later, the intruders are sprawled out, injured. Gray warns one that if they so much as touch the kids, he'll turn them into food, slowly, starting with their fingers and toes. The terrified boy stammers, and Gray figures he's made his point. Pressing the leader's head into the dirt, he demands to know how they found him. The boy stutters, saying he thought Gray was after the same thing. Gray scoffs. Don't judge a book by its cover. After another well-deserved punch to the lad's face, Gray leaves. He starts thinking about how this world doesn't even have schools. Later, he's back in Bastoke, the city he calls home. He notes the huge Adventurers Guild building, where quests are posted with rewards matching their difficulty. It's an easy city for professional adventurers like him to live in, being on the route to the capital and other countries. The large population also means plenty of bandits, like the ones earlier who consider themselves part of the underground guild. Gray buys some bread, thinking that since he doesn't have a team, he'll keep all the rewards and can comfortably afford the kids' meals. When Gray returns, he announces it's time to cook. The kids are surprised. He doesn't seem like the type who can cook. Izuka panics, insisting he didn't mean it that way. Ariamel offers to help light the fire, while Gray catches Lutz eyeing an apple and ruffles his hair, telling him to wait. Ariamel notes this and takes Nina and Lutz aside. Gray notes how surprisingly well-behaved the kids are for slum dwellers. He decides not to dig too deep into their situation, figuring they can handle simple recipes. Nina tugs at his clothes, and Gray looks down, telling her to stay still and wipe her nose. But then she calls him Dad. He freezes. It's wrong. He knows that, but part of him wonders if denying it would make her sad. Before he can figure out how to respond, Ariamel calls Nina over, gently scolding her for bothering him. Gray still doesn't know what to say. Soon, they're all at the table, and the woman announces the food is ready. Gray muses how he ended up eating with them. Ishuka compliments the food, while Fio scolds him for talking with his mouth full. The two younger kids are making a mess with their food, and Gray can't help but feel a strange sense of warmth amidst the chaos. He wipes the younger kids' faces and watches as Nina thanks Dada. Ariamel picks up Stella to feed her, reminding her to eat slowly. Gray notices they're starting to regain some strength and mentions Stella's energy is coming back. Ariamel tells Gray to leave the cleaning to her, and he agrees. Izuka thanks Gray for the food, and Foyo adds that it was really good. Gray brushes it off, thinking time will sort things out. He mentions he's heading home, but Nina doesn't want him to leave. She hugs him and hands him a doll. Gray takes it, wondering what he's supposed to do with it. Ariamel apologizes to Gray and tries to explain to Nina that Gray has his own house. But Nina insists. Gray chuckles and says it's fine. Kids are like that. Since it's bedtime, he decides to stay until they fall asleep. His mind drifts to his past life, his sister saying goodbye, his mom telling him to take care of himself, and his dad mentioning he's in high school. The last words he remembers are, "See you later." The next morning, Gray carries a bunch of food, thinking it should be fresh enough for now. He figures he'll stick to simple meals for a while and upgrade to better quality meat later. When he arrives, he sets the food down, and everyone is impressed. They start looking at the recipes and menu ideas Gray brought. He tells them he won't be coming every day, so they should eat well while they can. Ariel asks if he'd like to look around, but the others are still sleeping. Gray starts feeling like a dad about to leave on a business trip. He sees the 3 kids sleeping while Ariel asks if he slept well. She admits Nina's tantrum might have bothered him a bit, but it's no big deal. Ariel looks happy, and Ishika hesitantly asks if they'll see Gray again. He nods. He's got a plan. It's time to start making some money. Later, an old orc is running for his life, muttering that he can't win and knows it. He's desperate, saying that man isn't human. Humans are just cattle to him. But all his subordinates died to that human, their heads flying off easily. He keeps repeating that the guy isn't human until Gray appears with his evil grin. The orc panics, wondering why Gray is pointing his sword at him. Gray yells that they've just started playing tag, and the orc is it. Gray casually mentions there's something he wants to buy, so he'll need to collect the orc's head. The scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild, where Gray is scanning the mission board. An extermination mission for an elder orc catches his eye, and he decides it's a good fit. As he's pondering, he overhears the staff chatting about a guy with a dark sense of humor. They mention he's supposedly committed every crime under the sun: assault, blackmail, theft, you name it. Gray thinks if that were true, his adventurer's license would have been revoked ages ago. Just then, a guy approaches, teasing Gray about taking on an extermination mission. Gray recognizes him as Gansis, someone he finds incredibly annoying. Gansis jokes about Gray's cold demeanor and brings up rumors of him threatening kids in the slums. Gray brushes it off, thinking Gansis only shows up because he's still salty about Gray rejecting his team invite. Gansis brags about reaching rank B faster than Gray, but Gray fires back with a snarky comment about remembering your roots. Gansis points out a goblin extermination mission, but Gray gets nervous. Goblins are way too low rank for him. The banter escalates, with Gansis getting increasingly worked up while his subordinates try to calm him down. Gray ignores the drama and heads over to Sasha, the receptionist, to register for the orc mission. Sasha sighs at the childish behavior but helps him review the details. The mission involves an old orc spotted near a poor village, and the payout is lower than usual because the villagers can't afford more. Sasha suggests forming a temporary team, but Gray declines, knowing no one would want to team up with him anyway. He prepares to head out, thinking he needs to finish this quickly. Before leaving, Sasha thanks Gray and assures him no one at the guild believes the rumors about him. Gray shrugs it off, pondering the orc's parts can be sold for a high price as a powerful aphrodisiac, something nobles are always after. Sasha just shakes her head, wondering what goes on in Gray's mind. The scene cuts to the village, where the chief is overjoyed Gray accepted the mission despite the low reward. He introduces Marina, a village girl, and suggests she accompany Gray for the night as a form of compensation. Marina, terrified but feeling obligated, nervously enters Gray's room. Gray notices her fear and reassures her she doesn't need to stay. He explains that while some adventurers might take advantage of the situation, he's not one of them. He tells her to rest easy and promises to complete the mission so the village can return to normal. Marina, relieved, apologizes and wishes him good night before leaving. As Marina walks away, she finds herself thinking that Gray might actually be a kind person. She returns to the old man, who immediately asks what happened. She explains that Gray told her he didn't need her anymore, but reassured her that he would still complete the mission. Hearing this, the old man sighs in relief, just glad she's safe. The next morning, Marina brings Gray a small snack, hoping he'll like it. She knocks, apologizing for the previous night as he opens the door. Gray brushes it off and thanks her before digging in. As he eats, he compliments the food, but Marina downplays it. Once finished, he gets ready to leave. The villagers gather around, reminding him to be careful. He's the only one they can rely on. Marina adds that they're all counting on him. With a final farewell, Gray sets off. Back in the present, an orc is running for his life, sheer terror on his face. He mutters frantically about the need to escape Gray, fearing both for his life and his dignity. But before he can get far, Gray hurls a sword, slicing off one of the orc's arms. The orc lets out a blood-curdling scream as Gray calmly tells him to say his final prayers, mockingly calling him Old Orc. He playfully debates which to take first, his head or his more delicate parts. Once the fight is over, Gray collects everything he needs, making use of a high-class magic bag. These bags are rare, but he had the foresight to buy one back when he was still in a team. Thanks to it, he doesn't have to carry certain gruesome trophies in his hands. Not that he enjoys having them in his bag either, but it is what it is. When he returns to the village, the townspeople are already gathered, waiting for news. Gray announces that the orc is dead and that the forest is safe to use again. The old man thanks him for his hard work, but when Gray presents the orc's head as proof, the villagers recoil in horror. That was definitely more than they needed to see. Marina asks if he'll stay the night since she was planning to cook for him, but Gray politely declines, saying he needs to leave soon. He apologizes, and although she looks a little disappointed, she says she understands. The villagers thank him once again and wish him a safe journey. Later, as Gray rides in a carriage, he reflects on how smoothly everything is going. His long-term plan is finally coming together, and he's close to making his dream home a reality. It's been a while since he started living in Bastock, and while the inn is comfortable, it's time to settle down properly. He smirks to himself, noting that the old orc's family jewels will probably end up helping some noble families with their lineage. His quiet laughter unnerves the other passengers who inch away from him. The next day, Gray is back at the inn in Bastock, carefully stitching up a worn-out doll for Nina. He figures she'll be happy to have it fixed, but the fabric is so old that it'll probably fall apart again soon. Deciding to try something more permanent, he heads to a shop to see if alchemy can restore it. The shopkeeper recognizes him immediately, commenting on how Gray just got back, but is already preparing to leave again. He jokes that it must be for a woman, maybe some post-mission romance. Before Gray can respond, the man suddenly calls for someone named Lena, shouting that her father is at it again. A voice from upstairs fires back as Lena, the innkeeper's daughter, starts scolding her father for pestering guests with his stories. The old man tries to defend himself, but Lena isn't having it. She calls him an idiot, much to his dismay, and insists that men should stick together. Gray merely shrugs, saying he was about to leave anyway. Lena assures him she'll handle her father and wishes him a great day. Gray takes a moment to appreciate the inn, clean rooms, good food, and generally polite staff. If the place isn't more successful, it's probably the old man's fault. Later, Gray arrives at the alchemy workshop, where Lux immediately assumes he's here about the doll. With a smirk, Lux teases that a ragged old toy doesn't really suit someone like Gray. Gray, however, is more interested in getting it properly restored. Lux confirms that alchemy can fix it, but there's a price. Before Gray can ask how much, Lux reveals he has a client who is specifically interested in old orc parts. When Gray casually presents the orc's head, Lux recoils in horror, exclaiming that he wasn't supposed to bring that back. Gray, however, knows exactly what Lux really wants, the orc's crystal ball. With a smirk, Gray admits to taking one of the orc's jewels, but says he's willing to forgive Lux for his reaction. After all, if things go well, Lux is the type to slip him a free healing potion. Besides, as long as the kid is happy, Gray doesn't really care what he gains in return. When Gray returns, Nina rushes toward him, calling out desperately for her dad. Ariamel beside her quickly apologizes, explaining that Nina cried a lot after he left. Gray kneels down and gently hugs her, reassuring her that there's no need to cry because Gray is here, and look, Stella is too. Stella, smiling, also calls him Dad and playfully reminds him to comfort Nina properly. Seeing her happy and full of energy again makes Gray feel a quiet sense of relief. He's glad she's doing well. Apologizing for making Nina wait, he pulls out the doll and hands it to her. Her eyes immediately light up with excitement. She eagerly takes it, bouncing on her feet as she admires how pretty it looks. The whole room brightens at her joy, and everyone is relieved to see her happy. Arya, watching the moment unfold, expresses her deep gratitude to Gray, unsure of how to properly thank him. But Gray brushes it off as nothing. Instead, he suggests heading inside to eat. Ariamel tells Nina she can go play with Theo, but Gray chimes in, saying she can stay right where she is. It's no problem. Beaming, Nina settles onto Gray's lap. As everyone sits down for the meal, Gray quietly observes Isuka asking Theo to eat his mushrooms. To Gray, Isuka just seems like a regular kid, one who has no idea that someday he's meant to become the hero who saves the world. That thought unsettles Gray. He knows he'll have to lend his strength to Isuka when the time comes, but if he had any say in it, he'd rather let these kids live peaceful lives. Breaking out of his thoughts, Gray gathers everyone's attention. As the chatter quiets, all eyes turn to him. He takes a moment before sharing his plan. He's thinking of buying a house in the city and asks if they would like to live there. For a moment, silence fills the room. Then Isuka speaks up, saying they're all just really surprised. Fio hesitantly asks if Gray means just everyone. Ariamel, still trying to process it, asks again if he really means all of them. Gray simply nods. Nina immediately declares that she wants to live with Dad, her voice full of excitement. Arya, determined, says she'll do her best too. Gray, taken aback, wonders how things escalated so quickly. This wasn't exactly how he planned things to go, but after spending the past month with them, there's no way he can just walk away. At the very least, he's relieved they're not upset with him. Ariamal, sensing his thoughts, assures him that there's no reason they'd be mad. He's given them food, taken care of them, and even fixed Nina's doll. He's done more for them than they ever could have expected. They're incredibly grateful. She turns to the group, checking if everyone is okay with it. Meanwhile, Gray sits in silence, trying to wrap his head around what Stella Chan is thinking. Excitement fills the room. Even Stella, who usually keeps to herself, is quietly smiling. After a moment, Nina looks up at Gray and asks where he's going. He explains that he's off to find a new house for them and tells them to wait here. She nods, saying she understands, and Gray thanks everyone. The group is eager, and Ishuka confidently assures Gray that they'll all be waiting for his return. At the Adventurers Guild, Gray starts envisioning his ideal home, cooking dinner for everyone, a proper bath, and separate rooms for Ishuka and the others. A spacious living room sounds nice too. The more he thinks about it, the bigger his plans get. Maybe a large house or even a place big enough for a party. Just as he's lost in thought, Ganza shows up again, immediately asking if Gray got the old orc's ear. Gray sighs, already irritated. Not this guy again. The man insists it's impossible that Gray defeated the orc just 2 days ago. There's no way. He demands that Gray be honest about where he got the items. Gray is getting seriously fed up. He wonders if this guy is actually serious. Before Gray can respond, the man starts answering his own question, speculating about where Gray must have bought those old orc ears. That's it. Gray's done. He fires back, sarcastically suggesting that if the guy is too scared to hunt goblins, maybe he should try picking herbs instead. Gray knows how the system works. Adventurers can still get rewards for defeating monsters, even without taking on an official quest. All they need is proof, like an orc's ear. But the guy keeps arguing, saying that the ear Gray brought isn't valid because it's attached to the skull. So Gray casually tosses the orc's head at him, warning him not to drop it. He went through the trouble of bringing the whole thing after all. The man stares in horror as Gray taunts him, calling him Cherry Boy. The guild receptionist quickly steps in, telling Gray to stop and to report the mission completion properly. Gray casually plops the skull onto the counter. Sasha immediately scolds him, saying that dumping a severed monster head in the middle of the guild could be considered harassment. Gray shrugs, arguing that it's just a proof, but she isn't having it. She warns him that if a new receptionist had been here, she might have fainted just from the sight of it. Gray reassures her, pondering Sasha is one of the few receptionists who never seems scared of him. That's why, even when the guild is crowded, he always waits for her to process his requests. Though by the look on her face, she doesn't seem thrilled about it. Sasha hands Gray his reward, and he takes the opportunity to ask her something. She raises an eyebrow. It's rare for him to ask for help, but tells him to make it quick. She reminds him that providing guidance is part of the guild's job, so she'll help however she can. Then she calls over another receptionist, Melinda, to take over for her while she steps away. She agrees, but the moment she spots the orc's head, she lets out a horrified scream, calling for Sasha. Gray, noticing the commotion, checks in to see if everything's okay. Meanwhile, Sasha, ever the professional, remains unfazed. She jokes that if people didn't call her by name, she'd probably relax all the time. She shifts the conversation on how unexpected it's hat Gray is suddenly asking about real estate. Gray and Sasha arrive at the property, and Sasha explains that this house fits all of Gray's requirements. He takes a look around, immediately noting how massive it is. Sasha elaborates, mentioning that the place was previously used for Valkyrie gatherings, but when their events got too big, they relocated. Now the house sits empty, waiting for its next owner. As Gray processes this, he recalls that the Valkyries are an elite, high-ranking group made up entirely of women, nearly reaching rank S in Bostock. With invitations to noble and royal events, they are highly sought after. He chuckles at the thought of young nobles practically tripping over themselves at the sight of them. For a brief moment, he wonders if the house is being offered to him as part of some Valkyrie-related scheme, but the location, size, and number of rooms are too perfect to pass up. He can already picture the kids' excitement when they see it. Sasha seems surprised at how quickly he's making a decision, and Gray notes that the price is shockingly low, nearly half of what similar properties go for in this area. Sasha then reveals that the Valkyries themselves have arranged for half of the cost to be covered, but only if he is the one buying it. It's an amazing deal, and Gray knows he can't turn it down. Just as he is about to relax, his instincts kick in. He casually acknowledges the presence of a few individuals, one nearby, two on the roof, and two more hiding in the shadows ahead. His focus shifts to a hooded figure lurking behind him. If you're planning an ambush, at least learn to hide your bloodlust. The hooded man immediately asks if he's Gray, and everything clicks. These guys are from the Respacious Spider. Same group, same tactics. There's no way they're getting away this time. The man boldly declares he's here to take Gray's life, but before he can even finish, Gray moves. In an instant, he's gripping the man by the neck, his voice calm yet threatening. If they aren't part of Respacious Spider, he'll deal with them quickly. But if they are, he'll make sure it's painful. There's no time for games, so they better start talking. Within moments, Gray subdues the man with ease, sighing as he realizes this whole situation is an inconvenience. He still has dinner to make for the kids, and these interruptions are getting annoying. Turning to another gang member, he simply states that their time is up. The man, now trapped, stares at him in horror, demanding to know how Gray managed to restrain him so effortlessly. Gray just shrugs, explaining that it's nothing special. He's already taken care of the ones on the roof as well. Meanwhile, just outside the kids' cabin, two more gang members from before whisper among themselves. One suggests taking advantage of Gray's absence to attack, but the other quickly shuts him down. If that man returns, they won't stand a chance. Before they can continue their discussion, a voice breaks through the silence. Gray emerges from the shadows, completely unfazed. Ignoring his warning, the two men freeze in terror, their earlier confidence vanishing instantly. Without wasting time, Gray ties them up as well. He didn't get much information from the others, but if these two want a painless end, they'd better start talking. Otherwise, they should stop lurking where they don't belong. Later that night, Gray returns to the cabin, greeted by Ariamel, who looks relieved to see him. Nina rushes forward, beaming as she welcomes him back. Gray shifts his focus. He'll deal with those gang members later, once the kids are asleep. Right now, his priority is them. Nina tugs at his sleeve, looking up at him expectantly before asking to be held. He hesitates for a moment before lifting her onto his lap, and she instantly settles in comfortably. The moment doesn't last long before the other kids start gathering around. Ishuka eagerly offers to help with anything he needs, while Stella quickly claims her turn on his lap. Gray laughs, promising that he'll hold her too. Then Lutz rushes over, clearly excited about his turn. Once everyone is settled, he finally shares the big news. The house is officially theirs, and in 2 days, when everything's ready, they'll move in. Everyone's super excited. After that, they all go to sleep. Gray is just about to leave, putting on his clothes, when Stella suddenly asks if he's going to work, calling him Dad. He quickly apologizes for waking her and reassures her that he's just stepping out for a bit. Stella, with a curious look, asks if he'll come back, and Gray smiles, telling her that, of course, he'll be back soon. They'll be living together from now on. He promises her not to worry. Stella, still thinking, calls him again and asks, with a slight tilt of her head, why he decided to become their father. Gray chuckles softly, saying he has nothing to hide and could tell her right then and there, but Stella shakes her head, saying she'd rather hear it when everyone is around. Gray agrees, knowing it's something that should be shared with all of them. As he heads out, he feels like Stella has seen right through him, but instead of feeling uncomfortable, it's actually a comforting sensation. With a sigh, he starts thinking about how he needs to track down the rest of those guys. He mutters to himself, Dad's going to work hard, and looks forward to the lads showing him the way to their hideout. Gray finds himself standing with two guys, one already resigned to his fate, having led Gray straight to their hideout, while the other is desperately begging for mercy. The second guy insists he's changed, swearing he'll never attack the kids again and just wants to live an honest life. Gray, unimpressed, recognizes him as Cassie and reflects on the fact that these guys were the ones who started all this trouble. He had already warned them, but they didn't listen. He swiftly deals with them, deciding it's too much of a risk to let them walk free. No matter how much they claim to have changed, the safety of the kids and their past victims comes first. Determined to wrap things up quickly, Gray pushes forward, knowing Nina would be lonely and Stella would be worried if he took too long. Meanwhile, one of the remaining thugs, a blonde guy, looks at Gray, questioning who he even is. Gray definitely doesn't come across as a typical law-abiding citizen, more like an adventurer who takes things into his own hands. Gray moves efficiently, finishing off his enemies with precision. A direct hit to the head is the fastest and most reliable method, ensuring they don't come back as undead. He avoids using magic, figuring there might be someone capable of sensing magical energy. The remaining thugs are panicking, wondering what's happening outside. When they finally confront him, Gray casually mentions he already took care of their friends, and is in the middle of dealing with another one. The fight doesn't last long. He wipes them all out. He notes the usual setup, a big cave serving as their hideout, and sighs, realizing it'll take some time to reach the boss's room. Before he can make much progress, someone suddenly shouts about an intruder, and a massive guy appears, boasting about being a former Rank B adventurer. Gray barely reacts, already dismissing the guy as weaker than Gansas. Just as the fight begins, an assassin jumps in to attack, making Gray question what kind of training this organization even gives its members. One particularly bald and terrified thug tries to flee, but Gray quickly catches up, knocking him down with a well-placed kick. Holding the guy's face up, he notes how cold he looks. Running away was never going to work. He demands directions to the boss's office, and after a bit of hesitation, the guy finally gives in and points the way. Gray considers wrapping things up in style, maybe sending in that giant bird as a parting gift. At last, he stands before the boss. The man seems both surprised and impressed that Gray actually made it this far, just like the reports had warned. He's curious. What is Gray to those kids, exactly? Gray doesn't hesitate as he draws his sword, making it clear he's their father. The boss is baffled, laughing at the absurdity. Convinced Gray has completely lost it. But Gray is short on time and has no patience for this conversation. He's ready to end it. He tells the boss to prepare to make amends in his next life. The boss, realizing things aren't looking great for him, throws out a cryptic remark about the kids, hinting that they aren't normal. But before any answers come, the scene shifts. The next morning, Gray is practically buried under Nina and Stella, who are eagerly trying to wake him up for breakfast. Nina, clearly having fun, blurts something out while poking at him. Even Ariamel, watching from nearby, tells them to stop pestering Gray. He's probably exhausted. Gray, half asleep, figures he'll get up soon, but for now, he's just enjoying the warmth. Back at the inn master from earlier is asking about the rapacious spiders. He says they're apparently a large-scale group in the city, and many members are fighters. They constantly get into fights with the city guards, causing a lot of headaches. But now all those guys were wiped out in just one night. All their heads were cut off. He asks if Gray believes it because he heard even the hidden members were killed, including the boss. Lena also heard it when she went out. The Baldy adds that no matter how much they try, they'll probably fail. They should be scared of doing something wrong and ending up as the next target. The old innkeeper, blissfully unaware of the whole conversation, just goes about his business. Lena, on the other hand, starts reminiscing about Gray, remembering how scary he looked when she was younger. Even now, she finds his face a bit intimidating. Gray, meanwhile, is focused on more important things, like getting everything ready for the big move to their new home. The plan is set. Private rooms for everyone. The kids are thrilled, and Gray happily volunteers to help wash their hair. At the clothing shop, the attendant looks nervous around Gray, but asks what kind of outfits they need. Gray, completely uninterested in fashion, leaves the choices up to the shopkeeper. Ariamel teases that maybe he should help pick since Gray's fashion sense is questionable at best. Meanwhile, Nina excitedly shows off a new dress, twirling like a little princess. The whole group is in high spirits. When they finally arrive at their new house, it's even more impressive than they expected, huge, spotless, and full of possibilities. Stella is already dashing off to explore, dragging Nina along with her. The second floor is filled with cozy individual rooms, and the kids are thrilled to claim their own space. Arya holds back, letting everyone choose first, reminding himself that they're a family now, and this place is theirs to grow into. It'll take some time for everyone to adjust, but the excitement in the air is undeniable. While the kids are busy settling in, Gray's mind drifts to practical matters, making sure they have enough food, keeping things organized, and maybe even considering school. There's a great school in the city, one of the best for children, but it's also packed with noble kids. That part worries Gray. He doesn't want his kids facing discrimination or bullying just because of their background. He wonders if now is the right time or if he should wait a little longer. More than anything, he just wants them to grow up happy and have bright futures. As night falls, Gray finally heads to bed, only to find that Stella, Lutz, and Nina have decided they're not quite ready to sleep alone. They crawl into his bed, snuggling up for the night. Just as he's getting comfortable, there's a knock at the door. No surprise, it's Isuka, Fio, and Ariamel, all sheepishly claiming they don't want to sleep alone either. And so, on their very first night in their grand new home, the whole family ends up cozily piled into one room, laughing and chatting until they drift off to sleep. A month flies by, and breakfast at the house has become a lively, familiar routine. Gray looks around the table, realizing how much he's gotten to know the kids. He's learned that Asuka isn't much of a morning person, while Theo is incredibly sensitive and Nina absolutely loves food. Completely opposite to Stella, who is the pickiest eater, especially when it comes to vegetables. But if it's sweets, no hesitation. Those two are definitely the hardest to handle. Then there's Ariamel, who's always experimenting in the kitchen, eager to learn new recipes. The biggest surprise? Ariamel can actually read and write, which is pretty rare for kids in this kingdom, especially non-nobles. After breakfast, Gray gets ready to leave for work. The kids wait him off, but in the backyard he spots Lutz, who, as usual, is quiet and more interested in the animals around him than in saying goodbye. Gray notes that Lutz is by far the calmest of the group, always drawn to creatures big and small. As he heads out, Gray reflects that while he's learned a lot about the kids, there's still plenty more to figure out. Near Bastock, he takes on a simple goblin hunting quest. Normally, he'd go for the bigger, high-reward missions that take days to complete and require traveling far from the city. But things are different now. With the kids at home, he doesn't want to be away for too long. Short, daily quests like this one are the better choice. Once he's done, he stops by the Adventurers Guild to pick up his reward from Sasha. She immediately comments that he's changed. Gray doesn't get what she means, but Sasha points out that he's been avoiding longer missions lately. More than that, he's completely ignoring Gans's usual attempts to provoke him. Gray hadn't even noticed, but apparently, Gans's has been trying every single day, including right now. He's literally behind Gray, trying anything and everything to get a reaction. But Gray simply grabs his reward and walks out, leaving Gans's frustrated as ever. On his way home, he stops by a small market and picks up some sweets for the kids. As he continues walking, his thoughts drift to his past life. He remembers how empty his home used to feel, how there was no one waiting for him, no warmth to return to. Those days of loneliness are long gone now, along with his old life. Before he even realizes it, he's home. Lutz and Nina are in the backyard, playing, and they're the first to spot him. Ariamel appears in the doorway, announcing that dinner's ready. Gray hands her the bag of sweets, saying it's for everyone to share after the meal. Ariamel thanks him, but gently reminds him not to bring sweets every day. Otherwise, he's going to spoil them all. She even points out that Stella has already been skipping dinner just to eat the treats. Gray chuckles and admits she's got a point. Maybe he should cut back a little. Dinner is lively as usual, but Asuka and Fio keep sneaking glances at each other like they have something big to say. Finally, Asuka speaks up. They both want to become adventurers like Gray. Fio even asks if he could teach them swordsmanship and magic. Before Gray can respond, Ariamel shoots up from her seat, clearly not thrilled about this. But Gray stays calm and says he doesn't mind, though now isn't the best time for the discussion. He reminds them that being an adventurer is tough and full of unpredictable dangers. In his head, though, he already knows Asuka has the potential to be great, just like in Bright Fantasy. If Asuka is going to follow that path, he'll need skills and experience, and Gray is more than willing to guide him so he can avoid unnecessary risks. After dinner, Gray tucks Stella and Lutz into bed, telling them a story until they drift off. Finally, he settles in for the night. Just as he's about to fall asleep, he hears Stella mumbling in her sleep. He listens closely, and something about this feels important. The next morning, breakfast is another cheerful affair, except for one thing: Stella is staring hard. It's as if she's trying to read his soul, but Gray decides to just ignore it and enjoy the meal with everyone. Before he heads out to the Adventurers Guild, Ariamel hands him a lunchbox, saying she's noticed he's been skipping meals with all the extra work he's been doing. Gray, touched by the gesture, thanks her and takes it. Just as he's about to leave, Ariamel brings up her worries about Asuka and Fio becoming adventurers. Gray reassures her that it's ultimately their choice, but he wants to support their dreams. If she's that concerned, he suggests she talk to them directly. She agrees, saying she'll have that conversation. Finally, he heads off to the Adventurers Guild. When Gray arrives at the Adventurers Guild, the place is packed. He spots Sasha rushing back and forth, clearly swamped with work. Curious, he stops her to ask what's going on. She quickly explains that today is a big deal. The Valkyries are finally returning from their expedition to the garden, a dungeon that had never been fully cleared before. Apparently, there's been a flyer about it hanging at the guild entrance for days. Gray glances at it, realizing it's the same one he's been ignoring all this time, and just shrugs. Sasha, too busy to deal with him today, tells him to find another receptionist for his mission request. She also throws in a warning not to bring any monster heads this time. The last time he did that, poor Melinda cried for hours. Gray moves on to the quest board, scanning through the options. It's been a while since he entered a dungeon, and honestly, soloing one would be a nightmare. Dungeons aren't just dangerous because of the sheer number of monsters inside, but also because of the unpredictable creatures lurking within. Even outside dungeons, monsters can have weird abilities, like magic-resistant goblins or ones that are way too smart for their kind. While novice hunters can take down the usual dumb goblins, the intelligent ones, those are a different story. After some thought, Gray picks a goblin hunting quest. Easy, good pay, and quick to finish. He heads out, efficiently clearing the area around the city and wrapping up faster than expected. Taking a break, he finally digs into the lunchbox Ariel packed for him, and it's amazing. As he eats, he can't help but think about how Ariel isn't just a great cook, but also a beautiful girl who'll probably grow into a stunning woman. He jokes to himself that he might need to start training now so that if she ever brings home a fiancé, he doesn't accidentally slice his head off. Once he's gathered proof of his goblin hunt, Gray returns to the guild. Melinda, already on edge, spots him in her line and looks like she's bracing for the worst. But to her relief, this time he's only brought goblin ears, not full monster heads. As she processes his quest, Gray casually asks if the Valkyries have returned yet. She confirms they have and are upstairs in a meeting with Sasha and the guild master. Surprised that he's actually asking about people in the guild, she teases him, saying it makes sense since the Valkyries are famous for being some of the most beautiful adventurers around. Melinda wonders if he's planning to wait around or go see them, but Gray decides against it. He actually did want to talk to them and thank them for the house, but since they seem busy, he figures it's better to leave it for another day. When Gray gets home, he thanks Ariel for the lunchbox, and she's thrilled to hear he liked it. She promises to make him one every day from now on. After Gray takes a shower and has dinner with the kids, he decides to play some games with them. They're having a great time playing cards and laughing when, suddenly, someone starts knocking on the door. The knocking is so persistent it starts to get on Gray's nerves, ruining the peaceful evening. He's not happy, but he heads over to see who's at the door, and is surprised to find two members of the Valkyries standing there. Emilia, the Valkyries' leader, is the one on the right, and Kasia, her teammate, is the one on the left. Emilia starts off by demanding to know why Gray didn't come talk to them earlier. She's furious because Melinda, the guild's resident snitch, told her that Gray had been at the guild but didn't stop by to say hello. Emilia is clearly annoyed, and Gray, sensing trouble, silently thanks Melinda for being such a tattletale. While Emilia is busy giving Gray a hard time, Kasia, with a big smile, asks if Gray isn't going to invite them in since they're attracting a lot of attention out there. Before Gray can answer, Ariel steps up behind him, asking who these women are, if they're friends of Gray's, and if they'd like some tea. The two women are caught off guard by Ariel's sudden appearance, and Ariel looks a bit confused by their reaction. Gray, without missing a beat, tells them to come on in. Once everyone's inside, Isuka asks who the women are, and Gray casually explains that they're his old teammates. Vio and Isuka are in awe, clearly impressed and curious about how skilled they must be to have been part of Gray's group. After Ariel serves them tea, the conversation kicks off. Meanwhile, Stella and Nina sneak onto Gray's lap, clinging to him for no apparent reason. Gray's a bit confused, not understanding why they're acting so clingy, but Ariel explains that the girls are jealous and don't want these women to take him away. Ariel tries to pull them off, but the girls won't let go, insisting they don't want Gray to get taken away by these strangers. Emilia finally asks Gray who the kids are, and he casually replies, "My kids." She looks surprised for a moment before irritation crosses her face, making Nina a little nervous. Kasia quickly scolds Emilia for scaring the kids, then turns to Ariel and asks her age. She reveals that it's 13. Kasia smirks, saying that explains everything. There's no way the kids are Gray's biological daughters. After all, 13 years ago, Gray was dating Emilia. That remark makes Emilia turn bright red, completely flustered. And there you have it, Gray's the real deal. No dithering protagonist who waits until his 30s to figure things out. He's a family man, whether he planned it or not. Back to the story, Kasia also notices little Stella is a half-blood. When Stella catches the two women staring, she shrinks back in fear. Gray reassures her, telling her there's nothing to worry about. These two won't hurt her. After all, half-bloods, especially kids, are rare in this world, often sold as slaves or treated horribly. Gray just wants to make sure she feels safe. Gray sits everyone down and decides to explain everything from the beginning. He tells the whole story, starting from when he met Asuka all the way to the present. Once he's done, Emilia and Kasha just nod, saying this is exactly the kind of thing Gray would do. They chat for a while, not just about the kids, but also about the house. Gray had already thanked the Valkyries for helping him get it at a lower price, so there's not much left to say. Eventually, he notices it's gotten pretty late, and the kids are starting to get sleepy. He decides to put them to bed, while Emilia and Kasha say it's time for them to head home too. Gray offers to walk them back, but they wave him off, reminding him that they're rank A adventurers, they don't need an escort. He says goodbye, telling them to drop by any time. Just as they're about to leave, Ariel pops up to see them off as well. She tells Emilia that even if Gray isn't home, they're welcome to visit whenever they like since any friend of Gray's is always welcome. The word friend hits Emilia like a dagger to the heart. She definitely sees herself as more than just a friend. With her pride a little bruised, she and Kasha head off, promising to visit again. The next morning, Gray says goodbye to the kids and gets ready to head to the Adventurers Guild. On his way out, he spots Izuka and Fio practicing basic sword techniques. He reminds them not to overdo it. Pushing too hard could get them hurt. They nod but also ask if he can start teaching them magic next time. Gray tells them that before they even think about learning magic, they need to learn how to read and write, something they unfortunately don't know yet. After saying his goodbyes, he heads off, thinking to himself that the life he has now is worth more than any rare treasure. He feels like he could take on anything to protect this new life of his. Maybe this is what it means to be a father. At the guild, he bumps into the Valkyries again. Halsaria mentions she's about to head out. Gray assumes it's for another expedition, but she clarifies that she's actually on her way to report to the city lord about their dungeon raid in the garden. She asks if he wants to know what the dungeon was like, and when he says yes, she tries to turn it into an excuse for a little one-on-one time. Before she can finish, though, Kasha grabs her and drags her away, saying they're in a hurry and Emilia can flirt some other time. Once they're gone, Gray chats with Melinda, grabs a new quest, and sets off. As he works on his mission, he reminisces about his old adventuring group, Blade. The team included Emilia, a swordswoman, Kasha, a healer, and Gray himself, a magic knight. Their leader was a lancer, and there were two other members whose names he doesn't mention. They started as an average group, but through experience and hard work, they climbed the ranks pretty fast. Gray doesn't dwell on it for too long, though. He finishes his mission and heads back to the guild to collect his reward. On his way out, he runs into Emilia and Kasha again. They chat for a bit, and Gray asks how the meeting with the city lord went. Emilia sighs, saying they talked about a lot of things, but the big news of the day wasn't even the dungeon. It was about a new hero chosen by the Oracle from another country. Gray is caught off guard by this, and Emilia doesn't look too thrilled either. She explains that the Lord and some nobles wanted the Valkyries to join the hero's party, mainly because they're a high-ranking group on the verge of reaching rank S+. Since they're an all-female team, it was clear that the nobles had other motives. They wanted one of the Valkyries to become the hero's bride. Gray asks if she accepted, and Emilia practically yells that she refused. She felt like she and her team were being treated as objects, not adventurers. Kasha quickly scolds her for shouting inside the guild, and Emilia, realizing everyone is staring, apologizes before storming off. Later that day, Gray arrives home and is immediately swarmed by the kids. Ariel tells him that Lutz, Nina, and Stella have something important to show him. The kids proudly line up, holding out papers with drawings they made of him. Prepare yourself for cuteness overload. Gray takes one look at their work and collapses on the spot. The kids panic, thinking he doesn't like their drawings, but he quickly pulls them into a hug, telling them he's beyond happy. He's so happy, in fact, that he vows to buy special magical frames resistant to fire, water, and impacts just so he can keep their drawings safe forever. At that moment, Gray makes a new promise to himself, to become the best father ever. The day starts with Gray waking up to the kids sleeping around him. He gets up and thinks he needs to buy picture frames today. As he leaves his room, he runs into Ariel, who's about to prepare breakfast. But Gray says today he's the one who'll make breakfast. While Gray cooks, Ariel sets the table. Then Fio bursts into the kitchen, apologizing for being late. Ariel, with messy hair and clothes, is surprised to see Gray cooking breakfast and a little embarrassed by her disheveled appearance. Gray says she arrived at the perfect time and asks her to wake everyone up. Theo goes to wake Ishuka, and her shouts echo through the house. While Theo tries to wake Ishuka, the three little ones wake up on their own and sleepily walk to the kitchen. Gray leaves Ariel to finish preparing breakfast while he heads to the battlefield with towels in hand to help the kids wash their faces. It seems like an easy task, but it's not that simple. While he tries to wash Nina's face, who acts like a scared kitten around water, Stella plays with the water more than actually washing her face. And Lutz? Oh my God, someone help this boy. After this fierce battle, Gray returns with the kids, completely soaked. As he dries himself off, he tells Ariel not to prepare his lunchbox because he's not taking a mission at the guild today. The kids get excited, asking if Gray isn't going to work. Gray says he's staying home today, and more than that, they're all going out together. Stella asks if she can come too, and Gray says yes. After all, this is a family outing. Stella is overjoyed by Gray's words. Meanwhile, Gray knows why she asked that question. She must be worried that people will stare at them because of her. But he says if he finds anyone like that, he'll cut them, or rather, he'll solve the problem peacefully. Gray also mentions that the other day, while talking to Ariel, one of his friends, he was stopped by a guard who thought he was a suspicious man approaching an elf. And today, during their outing, he was approached again. This time, the guards accused him of being a child kidnapper. Gray thinks to himself that the prejudice against his face is worse than the prejudice against a half-blood vampire like Stella. The guards start interrogating Gray in the middle of the street, saying these kids can't be his because they don't look anything like him. But when one of the guards mentions Stella, the child with purple hair and red eyes, they insist they're just doing their job and decide to take Gray to the station to sort things out. Ariel then shouts at the guards, saying they're a family and that the guards only see the kids as citizens when they're clean and well-dressed. The guards seem confused, but Nina and Lutz cling to Gray's legs, begging them not to hurt their dad. Gray feels uncomfortable because, from the guard's perspective, it looks like he's using the kids as a shield to torment them. Well, either way, it works, and the guards leave. Ariel grabs Gray's arm and leads everyone away from the scene as far as possible. As they walk away, Ariel, with a serious expression, says the guards never helped them when they were wearing rags and surviving on scraps. After a few seconds, Ariel snaps out of it and starts apologizing, her face red with embarrassment. Gray just thanks her, saying today the protector was the one being protected. After all that, Gray heads to the inn where he used to live before buying his house. There he meets his friend, the innkeeper, and his daughter Lena. Both are shocked that Gray suddenly has kids. Gray, with the kids in his arms, says there's nothing strange about it. His friend says he just finds it curious that Gray suddenly did something so different from what his appearance suggests. So the innkeeper and Lena decide to prepare a big lunch to celebrate with Gray. And so everyone enjoyed a delicious lunch together, while the kids seemed to have fun getting to know Lena. Gray told his friend that his cooking had improved a lot. In response, his friend says the food just tastes better when you're with family. A few days after Gray's outing with the kids, he is at home talking to Ariel. She says she's going out with Lena today to do some shopping, and Gray is happy that he introduced Lena to Ariel since they've become good friends. Ariel seems much happier lately because of this. A few hours later that same day, while Gray is walking around the city, he runs into Lena's father. They start having a friendly conversation, and as they head toward the inn, they run into Ariel and Lena, who are being asked out by two guys. They refuse, but the guys keep insisting. That's when the killing machines, the two protective dads, show up behind them. With big smiles on their faces, radiating happiness, they call the guys over for a little chat. In the end, they just give the boys a small scolding while the two guys tremble in fear, thinking Gray and his friend are dangerous criminals. After the boys run away in fear, Ariel, who was waiting for Gray nearby, apologizes for bothering him with this. Gray notes Ariel holds herself back too much, and that she should have fun more often instead of always being so reserved. He says he's happy she's made a new friend, obviously referring to Lena. Gray says she's just a girl and doesn't mind spoiling her a little. He says he'd like to spoil her just like he spoils Nina and the others. At that moment, Nina and the kids arrive, and she asks if being spoiled is a bad thing. Gray says spoiling her makes him happy and that he'll spoil her a lot, just like he'll spoil Stella and Lutz, who come running over, creating attention. Gray picks them both up and says they'll always get his attention, just like Isuka and Fio, who are standing nearby and are usually quiet because they're shy. Gray turns to Ariel and expresses that he'll always spoil her too, since she's always holding herself back and staying reserved. With that, Gray gives everyone a big hug, even making Steve Magao shed a manly tear. The next day, Gray is training Isuka in swordsmanship. He instructs Isuka not to close his eyes while attacking, among other issues he has. He decides that he'll also teach him magic, but only when he learns to read and write correctly and without mistakes, as that's the basics for learning magic. Gray also says it's not worth teaching someone who doesn't dedicate themselves to their studies. While Gray is teaching Isuka, Ariel watches the entire training session through the window. Gray remembers he only started giving lessons to Isuka and Fio because Ariel, who was against it at first, asked him to teach them. Gray sees Ariel as a child with a very mature sense of protection, especially for her age. After leaving Isuka completely exhausted, Gray tells him to rest, and it's now Fio's turn to train. Now we'll shift the narrative to another place, specifically the Holy Church Storia, where a middle-aged man is talking to a supposed young knight. The man, dressed like a priest or bishop, speaks to the boy with a smile on his face. He says the carriage will arrive soon to pick him up. The boy, with a somewhat depressed expression, just accepts what the man says. After walking away, the man no longer has a smile but an arrogant look. He says taking care of a disheartened boy like this is discouraging, but now he needs to go after the saint. The knight beside him confirms that the saint is in the neighboring country. The man scolds him, telling him not to say the saint belongs to another country but to their own, where the Holy Church is located. He warns the knight not to repeat that, as someone might hear them. As the man walks toward the carriage, he thinks to himself that the saint is from a wealthy merchant class, and, like the saint he captured, she's also an orphan. Thanks to that, they can now have the saint with the church without any issues. With that said, the man says it's time for them to go and give their greetings to the Saint Ariel. Gray sits at the table, quietly reading, when he murmurs, "Hero and Saintess." Isuka asks what he said, but Gray brushes it off, turning the question back on him. Neither Isuka nor Fio has much to share, other than the obvious. The hero and saintess are supposed to be the ones destined to save the world. Yet even Fio confesses that it all sounds more like a fairy tale than reality. Gray studies their blank expressions. He believed that these kids have a special bloodline, but their reactions suggest they're not even interested. Maybe the nap squad would prove more insightful later. During this, Fio murmurs to Isuka, noting how lost in thought Gray seems. Did something happen? Isuka isn't sure. Turns out destiny speeches lose every time against daydreaming. Gray's mind drifts back to yesterday. On his way to the guild to report a completed quest, Emilia suddenly appeared, grabbed his hand, making him a bit conscious of what she's doing. But she quietly led him to a beautiful 3-story building. Inside, she expressed regret for the secrecy, but clarified that the guild was too crowded for this kind of talk. Once Gray sat down, they dove straight to the point. Secret meetings, suspiciously similar to awkward first dates. They disclosed shocking news. A hero from the Holy Kingdom is on his way. Instead of taking the highway, however, he's traveling through the forest, something the local fairies themselves confirmed. He questioned how the fairies were sure he was the hero. She then revealed that heroes, after all, are unique beings to them, impossible to mistake. Gray presses for details. Is the hero alone? They're not sure, only knowing that he isn't traveling by himself. Nothing screams chosen one like showing up out of the bushes. So why inform him? She recounts that they once declined the invitation to join the hero's party. They don't trust the city lord, and they don't know the hero's intentions. If something goes wrong, they seek Gray's help. Emilia, flustered and embarrassed, admits it was her idea to reach out specifically to him. When in doubt, call the guy who already looks overworked. Gray doesn't refuse. Instead, he emphasizes, his first duty is to his comrades. The fact that the hero avoids the roads feels suspicious, maybe even dangerous for the children in his care. He requests Emilia and the others for one promise. If the worst happens, they must protect his kids. They promise with determined eyes. Later that night, Gray checks on Ariel, as Fio guesses that the children might be having trouble sleeping, so he decides to take a look. He finds her asleep beside the children, a book lying open by her side. Smiling faintly, he covers them all with a blanket. Quietly, he leaves the room and comes downstairs, observing that Isuka and Fio are really working hard lately. He resolves, no matter what the hero's true goal may be, whether it involves the children or not, He will protect them at all costs. A sudden knock interrupts his thoughts. Both kids are curious to know who might come at this time, but he insists they'd better focus on their studies. Sword in hand, he cautiously inquires who is there and opens the door to find Amelia once again. Stunned to see her alone, he invites her to come in, but she's in a hurry. She delivers urgent news that the hero has already left the forest and is heading toward the city. Nothing good ever starts with a midnight knock on the door. Before leaving, she hands Gray a magical communication stone, one half of a pair. She clarifies that he can use it if anything happens, and she'll come right away, adding that it's also a lucky charm. He urges her to use it too if something happens, and she responds that in that case, they'll be counting on him. As she departs, he muses that he'll buy some for Ishuka and the others too. Basically, a fantasy's version of text me when you get home. After she leaves, the children bombard Gray with questions. Theo realizes Amelia is the same blonde swordswoman who once fought beside him. They start whispering to each other, and at that time, he brings tea for himself and them as well. Theo expresses gratitude for this and with wide eyes wonders if Amelia is his girlfriend. Gray nearly chokes on his tea before confessing the truth. Theo questions if she shouldn't have inquired, but he reassures her it's fine and ponders what made her think that. Seeing their curiosity, he reveals that Amelia is his ex, and they broke up long ago. The room falls quiet as Theo eagerly probes why they broke up, only for Ishuka to chide her for being too direct. Gray shuts down the topic by declaring that this happens all the time. He doesn't know about Amelia's admirers or nobles, but he's intrigued by how things are interesting for them. Tea, the most dangerous truth serum in any household. The moment shifts when Ariamel arrives and suddenly blurts out that she'll make dinner, forgetting they already ate. Embarrassed and blushing, she darts off, confessing she was just dreaming about it, leaving the others in awkward silence. Gray remarks about her bed hair, but Theo scolds him not to say something about her, as she's a young lady. At the end of the day, Gray finds himself in the kitchen where Ariamel is preparing dinner. He offers to lend a hand, but the girl, flustered and embarrassed, insists on handling it herself. Gray steps back with a puzzled look, wondering if this might be a sign of her rebellious phase. Apparently rebellion now comes with aprons. Stepping outside, he sees the children sitting on the grass, waving happily and calling out to him with bright smiles. All of them radiate a simple, carefree joy. For a brief moment, Gray allows himself a faint smile. Free smiles, after all, are the only luxury not taxed. That peace doesn't last long. From the side, the innkeeper appears, calling out to him. At first, Gray suspects the man might have been thrown out by Lena, but instead the innkeeper shuts him up and shoves a heavy pot of soup into his hands. With a gruff tone, he explains he came to share food. Then his expression hardens, word has spread. Men in the tavern and the guild have been asking questions about Ariamel. They look like mercenaries, though they've been acting unusually polite. The innkeeper warns him to be careful and just leave the scene, because nothing says danger's coming quite like free soup. Back inside, the pot of soup surprises the children, who gleefully announce that the innkeeper brought it. Ariamel beams at the kindness, and the family prepares to eat. At night, when they are having fun together, a heavy knock rattles the door. Gray instantly grows tense. He instructs Ariamel not to show herself, no matter what, and quietly arms himself before stepping out. Dinner, it seems, has entered the interrupted edition. Beyond the door, voices introduce themselves as members of a mercenary order known as the Night Mist Hawk. They claim they've been hired by nobles to track down a girl named Ariamel and ask if he knows her. Gray listens in silence, suspicion burning in his eyes. Why would aristocrats use mercenaries instead of their own men? Adventurers work under guild law, but mercenaries answer only to coin, and to the powerful who fund them. Polite mercenaries, Gray muses, are like wolves with napkins. When the strangers request to come inside, Gray keeps a firm hand on his sword. He opens the door just enough to face them. Two young men in polished steel armor, one fair-haired, the other dark-haired. Their polite smiles conceal a sharp request. Hand over Ariamel. Smiles, Gray realizes, are sharper than their swords. Gray folds his arms and demands the name of their employer. They refuse, hiding behind secrecy. That's all he needs to hear. If they can't even name their client, they're not to be trusted. His tone turns cold as he orders them to leave. The mercenaries frown, their presence threatening, but Gray's glare is heavier than steel. With no answers, he pushes them away, declaring this is way past his children's bedtime. They'll have to return another day, but deep inside, he simply doesn't want to stain his house with their blood. His glare alone could probably evict a ghost. The mercenaries withdraw, but their whispered glances toward the house confirm his fears. More are likely waiting at the back, testing for a weakness. Gray knows this house is protected, and it's not easy for them to just get in. But he also knows they're waiting for him to go to bed, ready to sneak in quietly. If Ariamel truly is their target, the children could be at risk. His jaw tightens. Bedtime is officially canceled. Moments later, Emilia bursts onto the scene, dragging an unconscious mercenary across the ground. Gray's suspicions are confirmed, and he realizes he must be the one to take initiative, because the night mist hawks are circling them like vultures. As their comrades retreat, they sneer among themselves, mocking Gray as nothing more than a thug hiding orphans under his roof. They spread vile rumors about Ariamel, suggesting his motives must be twisted. Mercenary gossip, as it turns out, is deadlier than their blades. But their arrogance dies quickly. A shadow looms behind them, and when they turn, Gray stands tall in moonlight. In one hand he grips his sword, in the other the limp body of the mercenary Emilia dragged earlier. His eyes burn with fury as his voice cuts through the night. Will they really leave and abandon their own trash behind? Trash day, apparently, just got personal. The mercenaries freeze. The hunter has shown his fangs. As Gray confronts the mercenaries, tension fills the night. A dark-haired fighter demands to know what happened to their comrade, but Gray silences him with a glare, his sword resting casually on his shoulder. He coldly explains that the man was sneaking around the back of his house, resisted capture, and was knocked unconscious. Tossing the limp body at their feet, Gray warns that he is still alive, and now they will answer his questions. Neighborhood watch, but taken to medieval extremes. With unyielding eyes, Gray demands to know why they seek Ariamel and what their intentions are. He presses about the bishop's hiding place, shocking the mercenaries. When they don't answer, Gray surges forward, growling, and swiftly severs the dark-haired mercenary's hand, cutting him down. The blond one stares in horror, paralyzed by fear. As he lunges desperately, Gray turns his gaze on him, smiling grimly, and within moments the man receives a similar end. Conflict resolution, medieval edition. From the shadows, Halsaria emerges, inquiring if the fight is over. Gray nods, confirming, and asks if she witnessed everything. With a teasing smirk, she praises his ruthlessness, but Gray's tone hardens. Anyone who threatens his children becomes his enemy. If others try to steal his children, they'll pay dearly. Halsaria notes his devotion, provoking him. He snaps that it's natural for any parent. Still amused, she teases that he ought to find a bride soon, but Gray brushes off the comment, muttering about what Emilia would say if she heard it. That's single dad energy at maximum level. Turning back to strategy, Gray and Halsaria discuss the enemy's location. She has scouted them well, 5 enemies in total, one in ornate robes, another in shining white armor, and others armed like the mercenaries he just faced. Gray praises her skill. When she asks if he's going after them, he confirms he is. She decides to head back to avoid Emilia's wrath. Gray entrusted Emilia and Kasia to stay home to safeguard the children, hoping she would resolve her conflict with Ariamel. Not far away, a man in fine robes sits among his men, frustrated by the lack of progress. He learns that Ariamel is with Gray and sneers at the adventurers, but then considers bribing Gray to hand over the girl. His goal is clear: seize the girl and cash in on her status as a saintess to take charge of the church. Yet lurking beside him is a dangerous ally, Lundy, the 7th-ranked holy knight. Towering in gleaming plate armor, with sharp eyes and a noble steel blade at his side, Lundy's presence radiates menace. Yet he urges the nobleman to let him end this corporate ladder climbing, but with swords. The nobleman insists that he doesn't want him to act, as he's his bodyguard and should stay by his side. But before they plan further, a voice cuts through the tension. Gray steps from the forest, his figure looming with unshakable defiance. The mercenaries draw their swords in alarm. Entrance level unlocked. Dramatic hero with absolutely zero chill. The nobleman stares in disbelief, demanding to know who this intruder is. Gray's glare sharpens as he calls them out. The stalkers who have been hunting for his daughter. The gathered men freeze, stunned by his words. Group project silence achieved. Upon seeing Gray, the holy knights freeze in shock. The nobleman silences them sharply, reminding them this tragedy is entirely their fault. After all, they couldn't even manage a minor assignment. Classic case of delegation gone wrong. He turns his attention to Gray, demanding to know his purpose. Gray replies coolly that he's here to settle the issue. In response, the nobleman offers money, leaving Gray momentarily stunned. Ah yes, bribery, humanity's oldest customer service policy. The nobleman presses further, hinting that Gray might be willing to exchange the saintess for the payout. Gray counters with a blunt question: is Ariamel truly a saintess? The nobleman affirms it, boasting that she was chosen by the oracle, and for reasons that defy all HR standards, he adds that her being a virgin isn't necessary. That little revelation only ignites Gray's fury. He advances, lifts his sword, and levels the blade at the nobleman's head, declaring that he will now end his life. So much for polite negotiations. Before the strike lands, Lundy intercepts, pulling the nobleman clear and stepping forward with his own weapon. He locks eyes with Gray, announcing that he will be the one to cut him down. Instantly, the chamber shifts into high-tension mode. The nobleman, red with rage, shouts at Gray for daring such rude behavior and orders his knights, and the so-called hero, to support Lundy. Yet as the young hero moves, he finds Gray and Lundy already engaged in furious combat. Perfect timing. He shows up just when no one actually needs him. Gray, mid-duel, steals a glance at the boy. He's surprised. The hero is barely more than a child, hardly someone seasoned for battle. Lundy, however, clad in white armor, radiates skill and menace. Gray realizes Halsaria won't reach him quickly enough. For now, he'll have to stand alone. Solo mode unlocked. Gray muses that, as a warm-up, he might as well defeat the hero first. Pre-boss battle stretching. But before he can act, Lundy drives a brutal punch into the hero's chest, sending him sprawling backward. Lundy then issues his decree. This fight belongs to him alone, and no one else is to interfere. Just then, the nobleman erupts, demanding to know what Lundy thinks he's doing. Lundy, visibly irritated, snaps back with the verbal equivalent of a shut-up gesture. In his head, he convinces himself he doesn't need a hero to defeat a mere adventurer, that he alone will crush Gray and claim the saintess for himself. Ah yes, the classic I work better soul of delusion. Turning back to Gray, Lundy strides forward and snarls that he's done entertaining his jokes. Gray counters coldly, declaring that he'll send Lundy straight to his god. With a sudden surge of force, he drives Lundy to his knees, sword pressing down on his shoulders. With ruthless intent, Gray swings his blade. Lundy blocks, but the force splits the ground beneath him. The crash echoes far and wide. From a distance, Halsaria, sat between trees, realizes it's her cue to intervene. She darts forward, bounding branch to branch. Parker solves everything. Back in the fray, Lundy struggles against the crushing strength before him. He can't comprehend whether Gray is truly just an adventurer or something far more dangerous. Job titles are always misleading anyway. From behind, the nobleman panics, screaming at Lundy to stop wasting time and kill Gray already. Barely holding his defense, Lundy snaps back, threatening to kill the nobleman first if he doesn't shut his mouth. The nobleman falls silent, terrified. Customer complaints handled poorly. Regaining focus, Lundy roars at Gray, demanding to know how he's wielding such monstrous strength, but Gray doesn't relent. Each swing forces Lundy closer to collapse. The unsubscribe button is right there. Snarling, Gray shouts that a worthless man like Lundy doesn't deserve to live. With relentless pressure, he drives his blade forward. In a final burst of effort, Lundy shoves Gray back, chest heaving. Gray blinks, surprised. How did he push through the strength magic? Still, he's ready to end it. But Lundy suddenly yells, vowing to unleash his secret technique and end Gray once and for all. In his twisted ambition, he imagines slaying Gray, seizing the saintess, and bending her to his will. He then picks up the teleportation stones. Halsaria asks if he plans to sell them, but Gray says no. He'll use them to transport the bodies somewhere remote where wild creatures can deal with the remains. He activates the stones, and the corpses vanish in a flash of light. A crude but effective cleanup. Gray reflects that the nobleman's group wasn't particularly special. Their obsession with Ariamel suggests even their own kingdom knew little about their real mission. With no one to report them missing, their disappearance may go unnoticed. This thought brings him some relief. He tells Halsaria to return to her team while he handles the rest. Gray leads Ellis to a nearby village and rents a room for a few days. Before leaving, he tells the boy to rest. Ellis quietly thanks him for covering the cost. Gray replies that it wasn't his money anyway, no reason to worry. Afterward, Gray returns home. Halsaria informs him that she's already updated the rest of the squad. Gray nods in gratitude, only for one teammate to rib him with a grin, remarking that this is exactly what they expected from him. They lean in and prod him about what he plans to do with the so-called hero now. Office gossip. The eternal background music. Gray explains that he'll first need to check in with the kid since the little one got separated from their friends. Until then, he'll keep the kid with him, assuming nobody objects. During that time, he'll dig up more information about where the friends went. The others exchange looks and agree, offering to lend a hand if necessary. Gray turns to Amelia and offers his thanks. Her cheeks instantly bloom red, and she mutters that she's heading home. He leans forward, suggesting she stay just a bit longer, offering tea or coffee as a bribe. Romantic tension, now pouring hot beverages, but Amelia flusters further, averting her gaze before slipping out. From behind, the others call after her, but she ignores them completely. Sensing the mood shift, the team takes their cue to leave as well, tossing casual farewells at Gray. He watches them scatter one by one. Group exit, cue the sitcom credits roll. Later, Gray returns home to find Amelia fast asleep on the couch. Instead of waking her, he quietly scoops her up and carries her toward the bed. Stealth mode, flawlessly executed. As he carries her, his thoughts drift. He wishes he could erase whatever nightmares disrupt her nights. Meanwhile, the camera of the story pans to Amelia's dream, proof that sleep is just free horror theater. In her nightmare, she stands in a desolate, freezing void, unsure how she got there. Her only thought is to hurry back home. Everyone must be waiting for dinner. Oldest sibling problems never clock out. She suddenly spots a shack ahead, and to her horror, it's her own family home engulfed in flames. The sight twists her stomach. She glimpses at her parents, babbling about how she's met new people and built another kind of family. They may not have much food, but the bond feels real. Yet as she looks around, she fears it might all be gone already. Family values, priceless but fragile. The dream curdles further. Strangers storm the house, slaughtering her siblings one after another. When Ariamel tries to intervene, they beat her down, snarling that from now on she belongs to them as a slave. The nightmare mashes together fragments of her past and present until it becomes unbearable. Life without Gray, the worst alternate timeline imaginable. They wrap a chain around her neck, yank her hair, and drag her across the floor. The pain is searing. Then a booming voice declares her the saintess chosen by the oracle, while a boy, the destined hero to get along. Her attacker unshackles her and mutters a shaky apology. Moments later, a nobleman appears. The dreamscape twists into something darker, more unsettling. Ariamel begins to laugh, sharp, uncontrollable, as her mind starts to fracture beneath it all. Dream logic, always undercooked. Believing her death is imminent, she whispers an apology to the siblings she failed to shield. Suddenly, she's back in that same cold void, until warmth sets in, nightmare patched with a warmth update. She opens her eyes to find Gray nearby. He murmurs an apology for disturbing her, explaining he thought she was trapped in a bad dream. She recalls nothing, so he tells her he carried her to the bed so she wouldn't freeze on the couch. She hesitates, then admits there's something she's been meaning to say. When he prompts her, she simply utters his name. With a bright smile, she greets him, welcome home. Gray freezes, stunned. In his past life, dragging himself back from work each day left him in crushing loneliness. That house, empty as it was, still carried memories he could never shake, memories that could still soften the edges of his heart. He doesn't want to recall them, yet he can't bring himself to forget. Even the silly routine things remain precious. Small joys have the sharpest bite. No one ever answered him back then, yet every time he entered or left, he would announce it anyway, because deep down, he only ever wanted a family. Looking at Ariamel, he whispers, "I'm home." Her face lights up with joy. Gray, meanwhile, resolves quietly that he wants to keep moving forward with this new family, embracing all of these kids as his own. A conviction blooms in his chest. Found family. DLC successfully unlocked. Ariamel shyly asks Gray if everyone else can sleep in his room tonight. She assumes the other kids are already there. With a small smile, he scoops her up and steps inside. Slumber party, parental edition. He tucks Ariamel down beside the others and starts arranging their blankets one by one. She murmurs a soft thank you. Half asleep, she tries to get another word out, but Gray gently hushes her, coaxing her into slumber. As he surveys the group, he realizes the bed is far too small for all 7 of them. Maybe he needs to buy another one. Then a brilliant solution pops into his mind. Why not just turn himself into the mattress and let the kids pile on top? Parenting hack, human futon unlocked. Right on cue, Nina stirs and mumbles that she needs the bathroom. Without fluster or fuss, Gray lifts her up and carries her down the hall. When they return, she tugs his sleeve and asks to be carried again. He pats her head reassuringly and keeps walking. Just as they step back inside, Another little one wakes, rubbing her eyes. She calls him Papa and announces she has to pee too. Bathroom duty. Eternal night shift. Whether you call it fatherhood or babysitting, Gray handles it with seamless Gray. He mentally ticks the order. First Nina, then Stella, which means next up is Lutz. Rotation schedule confirmed. But when he brings Stella back, he notices Lutz has already had an accident. The poor boy freezes, cheeks scrunched, seconds away from tears. Gray crouches, asking for his clothes with calm steadiness. He sets aside the damp pajamas, slides a fresh pair onto Lutz, and reassures him softly that it's nothing to worry about. When tears still spill, Gray pulls him into a warm hug and whispers, "Everything's going to be okay." He knows full well that reason and explanations mean nothing to a child half asleep. Comfort beats logic every time. Emotional patch notes, updated successfully. To help settle him, Gray lies down among the cluster of kids. Unfortunately, the bed is already a Tetris puzzle of small bodies. There's simply no space left. He eases himself out and reminds himself he should wash Lutz's pajamas before morning sets a permanent mark. He scrubs the pajamas clean and hangs them to dry. That's when the faint sound of birdsong tells him the sun is already up. Exhaustion floods his body, but he knows if he sleeps now, Nina and the others will ambush him with morning chaos. Sleep schedule permanently compromised. Still, he collapses beside them, hoping for a few minutes. Immediately, Nina and her partners in crime latch onto him, poking, tugging, and giggling until rest becomes impossible. Then Stella perks up, nudging him awake to announce that Arya Nichan is calling for him. Alarm clock, child edition. As Gray finally wakes up, Ishika greets him and tells him breakfast is almost ready. He should wash his face. Groggy, he washes his face, wondering what kind of tie this guy has to the so-called hero in this game. Could they be enemies? The thought gnaws at him, but he brushes it aside and drags himself toward the breakfast table. Suspicion, the real morning coffee. Once everyone settles down to eat, Gray clears his throat and makes an announcement. He's planning to bring someone here who will need looking after for a while. New roommate alert. He explains that the guest's name is Aless and makes it clear that none of them should have a problem with her. Then he asks if they're okay with her staying. The children exchange glances, think it over for a moment, then nod in agreement. No resistance, no drama. Gray exhales in relief, though he left out the details. If the kids agreed to avoid troubling him, it would be a shock. Breakfast ends, and the three youngest dart up to collect dishes and carry them toward the kitchen. The older kids watch with delight, praising their effort and encouraging them for being so helpful. The little ones beam at the recognition, their chests puffed with pride. Household chores, the OG team-building exercise. Their joy quickly pivots into an eager stampede toward Gray. Now they want their father's compliments too. Praise farming unlocked. Gray gathers them into his arms and offers warm praise. The kids glow, and he feels a rush of satisfaction, like a father hitting a new personal milestone. Achievement unlocked. Dad level 10. Later, he yawns his way out of the house and wanders into a pub. The moment the patrons notice him, silence drops over the room, followed by a collective shuffle toward the exit. Not a soul dares cross him while he strolls through, taking in their behavior. Free crowd control. Sliding onto a bar stool, he tosses a gold coin onto the counter and gestures at the bartender. Whatever that coin buys, he'll take it. The bartender pours, Gray eyes the glass once, then downs it in one go. Afterward, he steps back out and takes his usual dangerous route. He finds a man perched on a bench beneath a tree, surrounded by pigeons. Networking, Pigeon Edition. Gray sits across from him, a silent cue that business is on the table. He explains that he needs something investigated. The broker blinks, surprised Gray showed up in person, but listens as Gray clarifies. He wants intel on an orphanage in another kingdom. If the place no longer exists, he needs to know where the children went. The broker rubs his chin and warns that cross-kingdom digging will be expensive. 400 gold coins. Gray doesn't flinch. He agrees, hands over in advance, and stands to leave. The broker assures him not to worry. He isn't the kind who vanishes after taking money. Famous last words. Gray's expression hardens. He warns flatly that the man can do as he pleases, but if he even suspects deception, he'll hunt him down to the ends of the earth. The broker stiffens, mutters that it's better he just does the job, and vanishes with his pigeons in tow. Exit, stage left, with dramatic birds. From there, Gray heads to the inn. The manager greets him with concern, asking why he's late. Since he's been worried about the boy, Gray inquires, and the manager explains that the boy hasn't left his room all morning. Further in, Gray runs into Lena. She greets him politely, and he explains that he's here to see the boy he dropped off last night. She asks if the boy will now be staying at his house. Gray answers yes, for the time being. When he checks if he troubled her, she shakes her head but admits he seemed a little gloomy. Gray absorbs this, nodding, and then heads to the boy's room. Mood check pending. He knocks, and a faint voice calls from inside, telling him to enter. Stepping in, Gray apologizes for being late. Aless, perched inside, looks at him and asks what's up. The lad asks if he seems gloomy, yet seeing the boy's sad face, Gray can't help but think he shouldn't have asked Lena about him. Gray urges Aless to shake off the gloom, announcing that today's cure is a shopping trip for daily necessities. Aless blinks in surprise but quickly brightens, his mood lifting as they stroll through the bustling market. In the Storia Kingdom, his routine has only been a straight line between training grounds and his room. This is his first proper outing in ages. Retail therapy, universally effective. As they browse, Alessa's gaze lingers on the fruit stalls, and his expression twists into something caught between nostalgia and wonder. He admits that back at the orphanage, fruit was a rare treat, served only on special occasions. They cherished it. Ever since he became a hero, he's had access to the finest meals imaginable, yet somehow he's still felt the absence of something so simple. "Isn't that weird?" he asks. Gray shakes his head, answering that it isn't strange at all, because when he thinks about it, food always tastes better when shared with family. That thought alone pulls him back to memories of his own orphanage days. Nostalgia, best seasoning ever. Aless chuckles softly, conceding that Gray is right. Gray, meanwhile, reflects that ever since meeting these kids, the only thing he actually looks forward to anymore is mealtime with them. And it's not just about food. He knows he has the strength to protect them, and that certainty makes every shared moment feel like a blessing. Dad mode, fully activated. By the time they return, Ariamel is waiting at the gate. She lights up at the sight of Aless. Sensing his hesitation, she warmly invites him in, promising to introduce herself first and gather the others. She even offers to make tea to help break the ice. Tea, the ultimate social lubricant. Aless glances at Gray, asking if this is really Ariamel. Gray nods and explains that yes, in Storia she's known as the Saintess, but here she's simply a beloved member of their family. He nudges Aless to come inside, quietly aware that the boy's hesitation stems from guilt over being dragged into this mess against his will. Stepping through the doorway, Aless is greeted by Ishuka and Fio, who cheerfully introduce themselves. When Aless fumbles and doesn't reply, even Ishuka feels the sting of the silence. Gray can't help thinking the tension has roots in whatever dynamic the two of them share in the game. Before the awkwardness can stretch too long, the three youngest head forward and cling to Aless, their tiny arms wrapping around him without hesitation. Their pure joy is contagious, and slowly Alessa's mood lifts. Instant mood booster, free hugs. His eyes flicker toward a mirror in the corner. He pretends not to notice, but from its reflection, a voice whispers directly into his mind. He ignores it, barely. Just then, Nina toddles over, her face glowing as she addresses him cheerfully as Aresh. She insists that she's his sister. Gray stiffens, thrown off guard. Aresh, Aless. But why is Nina claiming she's his sister? And even stranger, why is she declaring herself the older sibling? He tries to string the puzzle together, but the logic only tangles more when Nina repeats firmly in his mind. Aresh is her little brother. When Aless asks why, Nina says she came to the home first, so she's older. Gray understands, but Aresh looks confused. Gray thinks everyone welcomed Aless home decently enough, but it's obvious Ariamel and Fio aren't giving him much thought. Ishuka, on the other hand, has become more quiet ever since Aless showed up. Stella and Lutz? No special interest either. The only one left is Nina, and her behavior pretty much sums it up. She stares at Aless while debating whether to share her snack, then happily eats it herself. Sharing is overrated anyway. At that moment, Gray approaches Aless and mentions they should pick a room for him. He points to the one at the far end of the house. When Gray asks why, Aless explains that it feels calming there. Introvert logic. Gray just blinks in mild confusion. Soon after, Gray informs him that now he's settled in, he'll have to come outside for some work. Aless agrees to follow. Deep down, Gray is plotting. He needs to find this so-called hero's companions so Aless can leave on his own without Gray shoving him out. And in this limited time, he has to make him stronger. When Gray probes a little, Aless casually admits he hasn't even used magic yet. Small detail for a hero, no big deal. Gray hands him a wooden sword and announces they're going to spar. Aless should be ready, because Gray wants to test his current strength. Nothing says bonding like a wooden weapon to the face. Aless charges at him with everything he's got, while Gray holds back his laugh. Here he is, training a supposed hero destined to fight the Dark Lord. Aless keeps attacking, trying to prove himself, while Gray reminds himself that he needs to awaken whatever dormant skills lie in this boy. Future Dark Lord, already nervous. In the process, Gray notices Aless's speed and form have sharpened surprisingly well, especially considering he's only been holding a sword for 3 months. Still, his footwork needs serious work, and that will only improve by facing real opposition. Gray plans to push him hard to make him ready for what's coming. Then, with a casual flick, he knocks the sword clean out of Aless's hands. Training montage cut short. Meanwhile, Ishuka is watching from the window, eavesdropping on every word. Gray tells Aless that tomorrow he'll register him as an adventurer, which makes Aless light up. Curious, he asks if Gray is really a B-rank adventurer. Gray corrects him. B+, actually, and wonders why he wants to know. Aless then blurts out if all B ranks are that strong. Gray, recalling past battles, mutters that's not exactly the case. Aless goes on to explain that Lundy used to spar with him to test his abilities. Whenever he froze up, Lundy mocked him, and every mistake ended up pinned on him. Gray, hearing this, feels oddly satisfied about killing Lundy. Meanwhile, Aless wonders aloud if he could really become strong like Gray. Character growth, powered by spite. Gray finds it hard to answer. He knows Aless will become strong. He's the hero of this whole game after all. But whether he'll have his friends by his side, or whether those orphans have already been sold into slavery, that part he can't say. After a long pause, he simply advises Aless to focus on training and keep his mind on the path ahead. Classic mentor line unlocked. Aless nods, determined, while Gray realizes Aless isn't chasing strength to become some hero. He's doing it for himself. A moment later, Aless excuses himself to wash up before dinner and heads to his room. Back inside, Gray spots Ishuka and asks what he's doing there. Ishuka reminds him that tomorrow is his and Fio's training session, something Gray had completely forgotten. Gray explains he'll be busy with Aless on a quest instead, which instantly sours Ishuka's mood. His dejected expression doesn't faze Gray much. Forgotten plans. The universal sibling trauma. As he leaves, Gray calls out that he'll still train both him and Fio tomorrow evening after dinner, so they'd better bathe before bed. That instantly lifts Izuka's spirits, and Gray quietly admits to himself that alongside Aless, he also needs to look after the rest of these kids. Later, over dinner, Ishuka proudly tells Gray he helped prepare the meal, earning a rare bit of praise. Praise, stronger than any spell. Gray pats him on the head, but when Ishuka smugly tells him to wash up too, Gray ruffles his hair even harder, teasing him. Soon enough, dinner arrives, and as always, the table erupts into casual chatter and lively chaos. Dinner table chaos, inevitable. That night, Ariamel grows worried after discovering that Lutz wet his pajamas. Out of concern, she asks if she can sleep with them at night. Gray gets an idea. Maybe he could use physical enhancement magic to carry Lutz to the toilet himself. Ariamel, however, quickly points out that would only pile more work onto him. While they're still discussing it, Ariamel steps inside the room. Aless, who happens to overhear everything, sits awkwardly in the corner, wishing he could disappear. Parenting, the ultimate raid boss. The next morning, Ariamel is in the kitchen chopping vegetables when she asks Gray to pass her a tomato. He obliges, but they both freeze when they notice Aless lingering at the doorway, looking pale and panicked. They greet him cheerfully with a good morning. His reply comes out in a trembling voice that leaves them both startled. Nothing scarier than morning small talk. Gray gently tells Aless that breakfast is almost ready and suggests he wash his face. Aless bolts without hesitation. Moments later, Fio comes in, asking if they've seen Aless running around. Ariamel and Gray just shrug. They've only been cooking. Ariamel casually adds that she'll be sleeping in Gray's room now to help escort kids to the washroom at night. Classic pre-breakfast drama. Fio sighs, saying Aless must have gotten the wrong idea, then heads out. Gray and Ariamel go back to cooking, noting the kids still haven't woken. Gray ends up washing their faces and dragging them to the table. By the time breakfast is ready, it already feels like a full day's work. At the table, Gray watches Fio scold Ishuka. Ariamel scrub Mina's face, and the rest create chaos. He remembers how he used to skip breakfast and realizes he doesn't want to anymore. Then he notices LS looking gloomy. To cheer him up, Gray says he'll help wash dishes. Family chaos beats coffee. He adds that as long as Alice lives with them, he's expected to help with chores. The word family makes Alessa's chest tighten in a warm way. Nina chimes in, offering to help her brother too. Gray praises them, noting how good Nina, Stella, and Lutz are at carrying dishes. The kids brighten up. Ariamel, ever practical, says if they're handling cleanup, then the boss should start making lunch. True power, delegation. Once the dishes are done, Gray and Aless head out. Gray thinks Aless will need a fake name for safety. Almost reading his thoughts, Aless asks if that's okay. Gray explains many adventurers use fake names, but once registered, it's permanent. Usernames are forever. Gray also buys Aless a new sword, planning to pass his old one to Isuka. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild. Gray tells Aless to line up while he checks the quest board. Nothing slower than paperwork. While waiting, Gray thinks about Aless's future. The boy's strong enough for hobgoblins and orcs, but as a new E rank, no one will take him seriously. Wolves, Gray decides, are ideal. They avoid stronger enemies. Perfect for training. Aless soon returns, saying he used his real name because it's all his parents left him, even though he never met them. Gray, unexpectedly moved, feels proud. He grabs a goblin hunt request and asks if Alice has fought them before. Alice says he's fought plenty, even works. Gray nods and sends him to the reception. Solid resume already. As they walk, an adventurer blocks them, mocking Gray for recruiting a rookie. Gray smirks and says that rookie beheaded an elder orc and carried it home. The man goes pale. Confidence gone. His companion drags him off, and he flips Gray off on the way. Alice, confused, asks who he was. Gray shrugs, just a guy who picks fights every time they meet. Professional hater. At reception, a clerk asks if LS is working under Gray. Gray confirms he's training him. Reassured, she gives them a quest, saying any job is safe with Gray around. They head toward the forest. Receptionists, secretly powerful. At Bastoke's edge, Gray suddenly stops and tells Aless to hide. They spot goblins moving in formation. Aless notices they're heading toward Bastoke. Gray praises his sharp eyes. He whispers for Aless to strike first before they can call for help. When three approach, Aless jumps out and takes them down. But the fight turns messy as they fight back in desperation. Ambushes rarely go smoothly. Aless wins and eagerly asks how he did. Gray says he's improving, sharper than yesterday. Aless beams, saying he's amazed by Gray. Hurting people always scared him, but fighting monsters feels different. Monster hunting, surprisingly therapeutic. Gray agrees silently, but knows Aless still needs more practice. He decides they should check the nearest village. These goblins might be scouts. Alice argues Bastoke won't fall to goblins, but Gray reminds him the kids could be in danger. Aless quiets down. Gray lays it out. Every last goblin must be taken down. And it's Aless's job. Soon, they stumble on the main force, and Aless is shocked by how many there are. Classic. One goblin turns into 20. And these weren't just ordinary goblins. Among them stood a general, 2 warriors, 4 hobgoblins, and nearly 50 regular goblins, all gathered together as one mob. Apparently, goblins throw bigger reunions than humans ever could. Gray outlines the plan. He'll strike the leader and the elites head-on, while Aless sweeps in from behind to mop up the rest. Alice wonders aloud if they should let the runners escape. Gray shuts that down instantly. No goblin leaves alive. Just as they're about to move, Gray suddenly halts Aless. Classic hold my beer moment. The goblin camp is buzzing with noise until silence crashes down. A single voice cuts through. It's Gray, sword in hand, calling out the entire horde and daring them to face him. Public speaking level, terrifying. All the goblins whirl toward Gray in charge, while the leader and his top warriors remain seated, chuckling like supervisors letting the interns handle customer complaints. Hidden in the bushes, Aless watches the swarm rush Gray. He prepares to move, but notices some of the tougher warriors already closing in on Gray. Meanwhile, Aless is basically the backup act waiting for stage time. Before they can land a blow, Gray catches their weapons bare-handed and powers up his blade. One warrior freezes in shock, only for Gray to scoff that his speed is laughably slow compared to him. Translation: "You're lagging, bro." In the blink of an eye, Gray cleaves the goblin in 2. Another leaps at him, but Gray counters with a bone-cracking punch before slicing it down in one clean stroke. violence multitasking at its finest. By the time he pauses, Gray notices the field is already littered with corpses. What stuns him is how calm the goblin leader looks. No rage, no grief, just sitting there like denial's an Olympic sport. Then the hulking goblin general rises. Gray sizes him up, realizing this one won't go down easy. He admits the general carries the aura of a true warrior, probably because he's slaughtered plenty of humans. Also, he has the face of someone who hasn't slept since the Stone Age. The duel begins, man versus goblin. Both launch forward with lethal intent. Because what's a fight without a slow-motion charge in your head? But suddenly, chaos erupts as goblins are sent flying, blood spraying everywhere. The source? Aless, finally making his dramatic entrance. Surprise hero reveal unlocked. He barrels through the mob with blinding speed, cutting them down one after another. Even he struggles to track his own movements, marveling at how effective Gray's physical enhancement magic really is. Think caffeine, but with swords. As he hacks his way through, Aless muses that it's a shame he can't watch Gray's duel firsthand. Still, he can't afford distractions. Not a single goblin is allowed to escape. Daydreaming mid-massacre, efficient. Meanwhile, Gray dismantles the goblin general and his lieutenants. He glances at Aless and decides the rest of the goblins are his to finish. Delegation level, manager. Watching Aless hold his ground, Gray feels satisfied. Training him won't take much longer. A stray goblin rushes Gray only to be cut down in a flash. And just like that, the mission is complete. HR would call this onboarding success. Afterward, Gray instructs Aless to collect all their ears. While doing so, Aless notices Gray carving something else, holding up goblin balls like some twisted side hustle. Not exactly elder-level loot, but Gray notes they'll fetch a decent price. Side hustles don't get much weirder. Aless stares in disbelief, but files the lesson away anyway. Gray explains calmly, but Aless can't shake the unsettling thought. Gray is hiding far more than he lets on. Mystery. Gray's favorite accessory. Gray severs the goblin's head and keeps it as a trophy. Then, methodically, he proceeds to disassemble the rest of the creature. Witnessing this, Aless can't handle it. Panic floods him completely. Surprise, horror, and trauma all wrapped into one unforgettable moment. Afterward, Gray inquires whether Aless has collected all the goblin ears. Aless affirms that he has. Gray remarks that these will need to be submitted at the guild office for the report. But suddenly, a thought strikes him. The receptionist might comment on how cold-hearted it is to make such a difficult task fall on a completely inexperienced adventurer. With that in mind, Gray reconsiders and, handing over the sack, declares he will take care of it himself. Delegation, the adulting version of magic. He then advises Aless to treat himself to something to drink. Milk would do nicely, once he reaches the office. As Gray approaches the receptionist, she shoots him an awkward look and remarks on his brutality, noting that he threw a rookie into a fight with goblins and then handed over all the credit to the child, as if the victory was theirs. In reality, Gray knows full well it was entirely his handiwork. Karma seems to be on a coffee break today. But as the receptionist pulls a warrior goblin's ear from the sack, her eyes widen. This could only have been Gray's achievement. No rookie could have done this. She then asks if Gray intends to take part in the upcoming exams. Gray dismisses the idea, moving on nonchalantly. Exams? Hard pass. He prefers chaos over structured evaluation. Meanwhile, Aless sits sipping milk, two striking girls attempting to strike up a conversation and persuade him to join their team. He looks mortified. Gray debates whether he should intervene in this social calamity. Sudden social anxiety detected. Just then, Aless subtly signals for help. Gray strides over, apologizing for his tardiness. At the sound of his voice, the girls instantly recognize him and bolt in terror. No one here dares confront Gray. Watching them flee, he muses that maybe showing up wasn't such a great idea after all. Instant ghosting, classic move. On their way back, they notice Amelia outside, holding something in her hands. Gray and Aless, still deep in conversation, pause to wonder what she could be doing at this hour, because nothing screams normal like a random late-night delivery. In a panic, Amelia blurts that she came for an imaginative meeting with Gray, imagination running wild, literally. But when she sees Aless, she pauses, surprised, and asks again. Gray introduces Aless as the boy caught up in Storia's chaos. Amelia then introduces herself, and they exchange a few polite words. She assures him that he can reach out if he ever needs anything. Politeness levels, expert. As the door opens, Ariamel greets Gray warmly. Gray, still wary of Amelia's suspicious behavior, receives a lunchbox from her before she departs. Ariel immediately tries to claim it, but during the brief scuffle, Alessa's gaze freezes in place, leaving Gray puzzled. Eyes on freeze mode activated. Back at home, Gray feels a wave of happiness seeing children at play and asks about Kasha. Amelia explains she's gone, following some advice she received. Opening the lunchbox, they find a beautifully crafted cake. Gray thanks Amelia. Cake solves all mysteries. Gray mentions he's waiting for Ariel's tea so he can enjoy the cake, inviting Amelia to join them. She hesitates. Then Ariel arrives with the tea, the ultimate patience test. Gray suggests Amelia take the cake while he fetches plates. She stops Ariel, insisting she will bring the plates herself, since she had already prepared them along with some snacks. Pre-planning level, chef mode.
Here I am.